Greetings, people. It's Paul at Greenshire Homestead. Gonna talk to you today about tapping black walnut trees for sap. A lot of people don't know you can do that, but black walnut tree gives you sap exactly the same way as a maple tree does. The black walnut syrup is actually tastes better than the maple syrup, and I know some people find that hard to believe, but it really does. It has kind of it's got that nutty flavor in there along with the sweetness. The composition of the syrups is exactly the same. 40 gallons of sap will give you 1 gallon of syrup after you boil it down. And then the sugar content is the same. So they're pretty much identical. The only difference is that black walnut, there's a hint of that nut flavor in there, that walnut flavor in there. So it is really quite good. So I'm going to show you how I tap the trees, and then how I gather the sap, and then how I boil that down. So before I show you the supplies you'll need, I'll let you know that the proper time to gather the sap, this is zone 5 climate here, zone 5 Midwest climate, and the time we gather the sap is going to be like the last 2 weeks of February or the first week of March. So right here we're at the end of February, and you want to watch the weather, because when the temperatures become consistently where it's below freezing at night and above freezing during the day at the end of winter, that's when you want to do that. So if it's doing that in January, which it did here this year, we had a weird winter, but you want to wait till the end of winter, because the trees aren't going to start flowing the sap till the sun is out longer. And so daytime temperatures are above freezing, nighttime temperatures are below freezing, and it's the end of February. That's when you'll want to do it. So what you'll need, you don't need a whole lot. I use milk jugs to gather the sap. We don't drink store-bought milk, but what I do is I run down to I run to town, and I go to the recycling center, and I dig through the plastic container and find the milk jugs that are good and clean, where people have rinsed them out properly, and I bring those home, and I spray them with a bleach solution on the inside and the outside just to clean them up and sterilize them real good. So that's where I get my milk jugs. They work really well. Then you're going to need your plastic tubing, because when I tap the tree, I'm going to set the milk jug on the ground, and then the tube is going to reach from the tap down to the ground. So that's the tubing, and what tubing this is, 5/16 inch tubing. The interior of the hole is 5/16 of an inch. So it's nothing special, just plain clear plastic tubing. And then you're going to need twine, and the only thing you need the twine for is to tie the milk jug to the tree so that it doesn't blow away. And you're going to need your drill with a 5/16 inch drill bit. You're going to need a hammer, because we're going to lightly tap the taps into the tree, and you're going to need a pair of scissors, and that's just to cut the twine after you tie the jug to the tree. So when you drill, you're going to go 1 inch to 1.5 inches into the tree. You don't want to go too deep, but you want to go deep enough you can get into the sap. So that's going to be somewhere between 1 inch and 1.5 inches. It doesn't have to be exact. This isn't rocket science. And then the tap here, this is what I use, these stainless steel taps. They have all kinds of taps. You can get plastic ones, and you can get the kind you hang the bucket on. This is just a tap that has a nipple on the end that's designed for that 5/16 inch tube. These will last longer than I will. They're not cheap. You get 5 of them on Amazon. I looked before I came out, and they were $14 for a bag of 5. So 5 of these is $14, and they range up to about $20. But you can get them cheaper. Like I said, you can get plastic ones and stuff. I'll bring this in closer so you can see. So this end here is the end the tube goes on. You might not be able to see that on the video, but it's got a little ring around there that helps hold the tube on. And then this long section here that's slightly tapered, that's the part that goes into the tree. And when you put it into the tree, like I said, we're going to use a hammer to slightly tap it in. But you've got your hole, so it's more or less like a little cave in the tree. When you set your tap, if this is the tree where the back of the hole is, so I'm pushing this into the hole now, You do not want to push it all the way up against the back of the hole where the tap is in contact with the tree. You want to leave that gap so that as the sap is flowing through here, it can actually get into the tap. You know, if you got it against the tree, it can't get in, obviously. So tap it in, leave just a little gap, and you'll be good to go. So I'm going to run over here, and I'm going to tap this walnut right behind me. If you can't tell the difference between walnut and another tree, yeah, that might be a problem for you. You need to be able to identify the trees in order to know if you got a walnut tree. So I can't really help you with that. You're just going to need to go online and look at trees or wander around in the woods with somebody that knows and have them show you. You know, also you got to do this on your own property. You can't just go wander out onto somebody's property and start tapping their trees. I think we're all pretty clear on that. That there are probably plenty of people that would let you do that if you don't own your own property. But if you have property that's got walnut trees on it, this would be I mean, it's exceptional. You're out in the morning at the end of winter. I mean, that's why I do this. I told you that the ratio is 40 to 1. Last year I got 2. When I was done boiling all the sap down, I got 2 quarts. So I had about 20 gallons of sap that I had gathered, and because I tap 20 trees is what I do. So I come out in the afternoon. You know, if you tap these in the evening and you come out in the morning and you don't have any sap in your jugs, don't get discouraged, because the trees are going to send the sap out when it's warm. So it's going to be about now. The sun's getting a little higher in the sky, and the sap is going to start flowing. So, you know, I'll talk about that a little more when I tap the tree. But there's a lot of effort that goes into this, because you got to boil it down. You got to gather the sap. It takes about 9 hours to boil the sap down. You got to have the fire low and slow, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. But it's about being out in the timber in the quiet and the still of the morning, walking around gathering a free resource that you get off your own property or somebody's property that you know, and using that resource that you've gathered yourself, that's pure and natural, and it comes from nature. I mean, that's a good day. So that's why I do this. You know, I'm going to go over there and start boiling my sap down, and I'm going to drink a cup of coffee and, you know, pet the dog, do these sorts of things. I mean, you know, there's not a lot for me to do into February, because I've already got my firewood cut and split for next winter. I'm not cutting grass. I'm not gardening. I mean, this is kind of there's like a 3-week period here where I don't have a lot to do, and it happens to fall right during sap season. So that's why I'm doing this, gathering a free resource that's wonderful from my own property. So I'm going to go over here, and we'll get a tree tapped. Okay. This is going to be an older walnut tree, and it's got really thick bark on it. So when I figure out where I'm going to put my tap, I'm actually going to use the claw of this hammer, just clean a little bit of that off, just so I can get the tube on the tap real well. But the younger walnut trees, it's not going to be quite as thick. And you know, you might think that, you know, a big walnut tree will give you more sap. That's not always the case. You don't want to tap any trees that are smaller than this big around. You know, you want to make sure it's at least that size, and go ahead and tap that. So this hole that I drill in the cap, that is not a 5/16 inch hole, because the interior measurement of that tube is the 5/16, but you can see it's got a thick wall on it. So it's going to be, I think, the next drill bit size up, but you want to hold the drill bit up to that and make sure that it's the same circumference or you know, diameter as this, because when you stick this tube in the hole, you want it to be really tight. You want it to be real tight like that, because of the high sugar content of the sap. Ants are going to be out this time of year, and if they can get into your jug, you're going to have a problem. So you want to make sure, because sometimes you're going to come out in the morning and they're going to be all lined up around here trying to get up in there. So just make sure that's a good tight seal where the ants can't get in. You set your jug on the ground, you figure out You want to tap the south side of the tree because that's where the sun's hitting it, and that's where it's going to warm up and the sap's going to flow the best. So I'm going to go right in here. So I'm going to kind of clean that out a little bit. Right there. That's not hurting the tree. Everything's okay. And this is not going to hurt the tree either. In fact, in like Vermont and New Hampshire, when they tap maple trees, sometimes they'll put 3 or 4 taps in one tree. I'm just putting one tap in a tree. And when you remove the tap at the end of the season, you don't put anything in that hole. Leave the tree alone. Just pull the tap out and then walk away, because the tree knows what to do. It'll take care of itself. It's not hurting the tree. They re-tap those trees over and over, and again, they're in Vermont and New Hampshire. When you drill your hole, you want to go at an upward angle so that gravity will feed the sap into the tap. Pull that out with my finger marking. So that's how deep I went. That's just right, okay? Now I'm not going to go any deeper, but I'm going to run this in there a couple more times just to clean the debris out. Okay, got all the debris cleaned out. There is sap on the bit, so we know you got a good spot there. Take this tap. Just tap it in there to where it's snug, but not all the way to the back of the hole. A little debris in there. That's not a big deal, but push your tap on, and you take your twine, go around the tree, tie your jug to the tree. You don't want to tie it real snug up to the tree. You want to leave a little playroom like that, because when you come out here to empty this jug, you're going to want to be able to lift it up and then dump it into your I use a clean 5-gallon bucket when I come out, so you want to be able to lift that out and dump it into the bucket. So don't tie it snug against the tree. So and just kind of play with the hose a little bit. There we go. That's going to work. That's not going to blow away. We got our tap set. We got it going into the jug, so we're good to go. Come back in about, I'll come back in mid-afternoon and empty the jugs. This might be half full, in 6 or 7 hours. This is just a half-gallon milk jug, so it might be about half full. I'll come out and show you how we gather that sap and how we boil it down. So, again, you're not going to get a lot of sap and a lot of product, but it sure does taste good, and it's a nice natural resource. So we'll see you here in a little bit. Okay, came out and wandered around a little bit. Some of the jugs are doing pretty well. This one's probably a quarter full, got about a quarter gallon here. So I'm going to dump that into this 1-gallon jug. Walked around a little bit, and this is the best one right now. There's a few that have gotten about half as much, and this is about the smallest tree that you're going to want to tap. That's a good example there. It's also a good example of you never can really tell which tree is going to produce well and which one's not by looking at it, because you would think the smaller tree wouldn't be producing quite as much, but obviously it is. It's a good tree. It's got good sunlight on it right now. That's going to be part of it too. Out here in the timber, some of the trees have a little more shade on them than others, so the amount of sun that's hitting it's probably got a lot to do with it. But so, like I said, you want to leave that slack there, and this is why, so you can get these dumped into your either 5-gallon bucket or this gallon jug. What's going on, Belle? But it's still pretty early in the morning, so I didn't bring the 5-gallon bucket because I wasn't anticipating, getting very much. So in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, after the sun's been out all day, you're going to get a real good sap flow, so you're going to want to bring that 5-gallon bucket with you then. So like I said, I'm going to do another video on how I boil that down. So we've got a video here on how I tap the trees and how I come back and gather the sap. So this Paul at Greenshire Homestead. You got some good walnuts. Get out there and give them a tap, and make yourself a nice resource that's free and natural and from your own property or your buddy's property. And spend a little time with your dog out in the timber and that kind of thing. Listen to the birds. So we'll see you here next time when we go to boiling it down. You have a great day, and thanks for watching.